This happened not too long after I turned 18 years old. My girlfriend had also just turned 18 a few days ago. This meant that her parents finally trusted her and I to be alone in the house while they went out for dinner. My girlfriend had always been a fan of scary movies and creepy things in general. She loved reading creepypastas and watching dark and gory films such as Hostel and Saw. On one night, I was sitting with her while she finished watching the last few minutes of The Human Centipede. We both had a few drinks and I was about to go to bed, but then she said that we should look for other scary movies. Despite my tiredness, I went ahead with her recommendation. A few minutes of searching on her laptop, the screen revealed all her favorite online film sites, and it showed that they had been taken down. That's when she suggested a chilling alternative. "Have you ever heard of the dark web?" she asked. I had actually heard whispers around school about it, but never took much interest. "Of course I have," I replied, trying to act brave. A smile of excitement appeared on her face. I could tell she was slightly drunk and in that sort of "I don't care what happens" kind of mood. I decided to go to the kitchen to fetch her some water. When I came back, I noticed she had a site open called Sensor View. This site showed the pictures of movie posters I had never seen before. I correctly assumed it was a site that sold banned horror films from other countries. All of them looked pretty unoriginal, nothing I hadn't seen before, except for one that caught my attention. The one my girlfriend was hovering over the mouse clicker. It was over a movie that was called The Visiting. The display picture was simply a white background with The Visiting written in Arial black font. We were both fascinated as to what it was, so I took my iPhone and searched for the plot of the film, but I didn't find anything, just a few stupid YouTube videos. However, when I looked back up from my phone, I caught a glimpse of my girlfriend typing in her name and address into various boxes on a page titled Order Details. I was shocked as she clicked the submit button. I shouted at her, explaining how dangerous it was dispersing her personal details into such a fucked up place as the dark web. I could see my attempts to correct her were useless, as the alcohol was hitting her hard and she was not paying attention whatsoever. Frustrated, I went to bed, deciding to talk to her about this the next morning. The next morning, she seemed to have little regret over her actions. She spent the morning explaining how she was curious and she was in no danger. She even said that the experience would be fun. However, I wasn't convinced. She told me not to tell her parents, fearing that they would not trust her to be alone in the house again. So I promised not to say anything and I headed back home. 3 days later, I was visiting her house again. Her parents had gone to meet with some friends from work for a drink, and we were watching The Exorcist on DVD. While the movie was playing, my girlfriend began joking about how horrified I looked a few days ago when we were discussing the dark web. She then said that she had only received a fairly professional looking email confirming the order and nothing else. I began to yield to her argument. Perhaps I was overreacting. It was seconds after our conversation finished when we hear what sounds like an aggressive knock coming from the door. It sounded like it was from 2 doors, but I dismissed this as an echo. I guess I began to look concerned because my girlfriend began laughing once again at the look of terror on my face. I put on a fake smile as I walked towards the door. However, it completely erased from my face when I saw who was standing outside. A tall, stocky man wearing a ski mask and black dark clothes, standing at the front door with a hammer. I was about to call out to my girlfriend to call the police when I heard a scream echo through the house. I raced back into the room to see my girlfriend pointing at the window facing the garden. I grabbed my girlfriend's hand and we ran up the stairs. We hid in the master bedroom as I was calling the police on my mobile phone, and they advised they would be there as soon as possible. As I finished the phone call, I heard one of the doors smash and loud, rapid footsteps heading up the stairs. They were in the house. Without thinking, I pushed the window open and told my girlfriend to jump, run, and not look back. She jumped and landed safely onto the garden below us. I was about to follow, but hesitated, wondering if I could put up a fight, and in doing so, allowing my girlfriend more time to escape. It was then that I heard a deep, aggressive voice just outside the room. The man shouted something in a foreign language as I heard laughing from two other men outside. All courage and bravery that I was thinking of evaporated, and I jumped, landing harshly on my ankle. The adrenaline racing around my body allowed me to power through the pain, and I eventually caught up to my girlfriend. We were running for what seemed like hours, but actually, it was most likely 10 minutes. We ended up next to the local park, a safe distance away from the house. My girlfriend began sobbing, and I tried to comfort her, trying to avoid my own desire to break down. It was not long after that when the police called me on my cell phone. They were at the house, and as far as they could tell, the attackers were gone. After taking a few minutes to compose ourselves, my girlfriend and I made our way back. There were 3 officers at the house. One was examining each room for any damage or evidence left by the men. One was comforting my girlfriend, while the other was asking me questions. With everything that just happened, I was shocked, and my memory was clouded. I was only able to tell them a few details about their clothing, and the fact that they spoke in what seemed like a European language. My girlfriend then handed over her phone and computer for the police to investigate. They advised us to tell the homeowners of the situation, lock up, and that everyone spend the rest of the evening with friends or a relative. So we both spent the night at my parents' house, while my girlfriend's parents stayed with friends. I remember my girlfriend crying over the phone while telling them about the situation, and so her parents became furious. A few days later, the police visited my girlfriend, and it was by luck that I was at her house that afternoon. They said that their investigations had led them to some disturbing finding. It turned out that the visiting was a nickname that locals in a small Polish town gave to a number of brutal murders that occurred in the 90s in the local area. These murders were committed by an unknown gang and were initially dismissed as home invasions gone wrong. All the victims were found dead in their homes, even though nothing of value was taken from the house. It was only about 2 years after the killings began that a family survived an attack by the gang. The husband was able to give the Polish police a few details of the attackers, but all that he revealed was that they were all wearing a ski mask, had blunt objects, and one had a video camera. However, the crucial evidence was that one of the attackers had dropped a backpack containing 1 blank videotape and 3 other tapes with content on them. The 3 tapes showed the horrific murders of the other victims of the attackers. The police came to a shocking conclusion that these men were creating snuff films to be sold to whatsoever sickos paid enough for them. A nationwide manhunt began, but after years of investigations, nothing was found. I remember feeling incredibly cold as the police told me their findings. They went on to tell me that the men most likely fled Poland during the police search, and that they could possibly have entered the UK as workers when Poland joined the European Union. The only thing they know for certain was that these men were operating once again. This was the first time in decades after their last murder, and that they were now using the dark web as a way of deciding on their next victims. The police told my girlfriend's family to move in with a relative while the investigation was ongoing. It was not long after that when my girlfriend broke up with me by her parents' wishes. I assumed her parents suspected me of forcing her into using the dark web, but my girlfriend later discovered that various documents containing information about her had been taken from the house. I'm not allowed to see her anymore, even though our parents still speak. From what they have told me though, is that her mental state has become incredibly fragile. It broke my heart to hear about this. I can safely say that the police will most likely never find the attackers using the information I gave. This means that they will most likely strike again. I can only hope that next time they do, it will lead to those bastards ending up behind bars and not the creation of another tape to add to their collection. So please be safe and avoid the dark web. Some people have a normal job, Monday through Friday, 40 hours a week, health benefits, bonuses each year, retirement funds. But not me. I don't have a normal job. It's not easy doing what I do, but it pays the bills since I can't get a regular job due to my criminal record. You see, I am a janitor that works for the dark web, and I clean up murder rooms once the buyers are done torturing and killing the victims they paid for. I've been doing it for the past 3 years. Every time someone needs help cleaning up the bloody mess they made, I go in and clean up. I make sure there's not a single drop of blood in the room and dispose of the leftover body parts any way I can. No evidence remaining, no questions asked. In fact, I can never ask any questions. These people cannot be fucked with. I just get paid to do my job and go home like nothing. It's a sick job, but they pay me very good money. But all that would change one night when I started to finally question my morals. It was one night when they called me to do a job. It's always at the same location, which is 40 miles from where I live, in a rundown warehouse. On this specific day, I was called to clean up a room, which really wasn't a problem. As I was cleaning the room that was covered in blood, I saw a small picture on the floor. I picked it up and it was a picture of a little girl, maybe around 14 years old. This made me think right away that this was maybe the victim's blood, who I was cleaning up just now. It gave me an uneasy feeling inside, and for the first time kind of disturbed me, just for the fact that these people are now using kids as their victims. But again, this was a job where no questions are asked. I put the picture in my pocket and I continued cleaning. Once I was done, I packed up my things and quickly got out the warehouse. I went inside my car and instantly I got a phone call. It was them. They always call me private. I answered and they asked me if I was done cleaning up. I told them yes and that I just got into my vehicle. They then told me that they left the money inside my glove compartment while I was inside cleaning, and that they'll have another job for me in the next 2 days since they have a customer who's already waiting. I knew I shouldn't have done this, but I decided to ask how old she was, referring to the victim. They hanged up the call. I'm sure they got pissed off by me asking. I didn't know if I could continue doing these type of jobs anymore, but I didn't know how else I would get out of this without some possible threat to my life. I got the picture of the little girl and put it resting on the passenger side. I went home that night, contemplating everything. It was the next day around 9 o'clock at night when I got a private call. I knew it was them. I was tempted not to answer, but I did. They gave me the same location again and told me to be there around 4 o'clock a.m. This time, no questions asked. Juan Miguel Santos of 3905 North 16th Street. The call hanged up. This was a clear threat, just to do my job and get out of there. I would need to leave town the next morning and disappear after this. I arrived at the location and saw there was an old Grand Marquis parked outside. Usually, there shouldn't be any cars but mine at the location, and got worried that maybe these people are keeping a close eye on me. I stepped outside my car and walked slowly inside, feeling more and more paranoid with each step I took. The hallways were darker than before, and I saw light coming from the room I was supposed to go in. I entered inside, and my eyes couldn't believe what they had just seen. There was a girl in the middle of the room, tied up and gagged to a chair, alive. The job wasn't done yet, but then I saw the body of a man laying right next on the floor, next to the girl. The girl looked to be around 16 years old. The girl began to scream at me, and I started freaking out even more. I ran to the man on the floor and checked his pulse. He was gone. This was the man that was going to kill this girl, since I saw a scalpel on his right hand. I walked outside into the hallway and immediately got a call. Private. It was them. Is everything okay? They knew something was up. They also had cameras in the hallways, but not in the rooms. They must have seen that I was nervous. Yes, everything's okay. Finish the job and get out. We'll leave the money in your car. They hanged up, but I knew they knew something was wrong. I went back inside the room, and the girl was yelling at me to help her with the gag in her mouth. I didn't know what to do. I needed to dispose of her body, but that meant that I needed to kill her first. I looked around inside the man's bag, and he had several weapons and tools inside, presumably to use to torture the girl. I pulled out a power drill and turned it on. The girl started to scream even more, telling me to stop. She was crying her eyes out. I aimed the power drill at her face, and more tears started to run down her face. I took off her gag and asked her what happened. She told me that the man just fell on the floor and seemed like he had a heart attack. You know that I can't let you out of here. These are dangerous people, and there are cameras everywhere inside this building. We both looked around the room. What about him? The girl asked. I looked at the man and saw he had a hoodie. I took it off and gave it to the girl. Put this on and cover yourself and run as far as you can away from here. I'm scared. What if they find me? The girl said. I looked inside the man's pockets and found some car keys. They must have been for the car that was parked outside. Here, take the keys. I think the car that's parked outside is his. Whatever you do, do not go to the police. They will find you and they will kill you. Just go as far away from here as you can. Before she left, I asked her for her name, and she said it was Crystal and that she was 17 years old. I was scared for her. I know they might have been outside waiting for me to finish. Before she stepped outside, I looked around the parking lot to see if it was clear for her to go. There were only but 2 cars outside, and she quickly ran to the Marquise. She said thank you and took off. I went back inside and quickly got all my things. My phone started to ring. It was them. I ignored them and quickly ran to my vehicle. As soon as I was about to take off, a car was approaching from behind me. The car parked right behind me, and 2 men, each wearing a mask, stepped out. Not only that, but they opened the back seat of the car and took out Crystal. They had captured her. They knew everything we had done. I should have taken off. One of the men took out a gun and pointed at me to step outside my vehicle. I stepped out and they wanted me to go inside. They took me and Crystal into the room with the client's dead body. I knew what they were going to do to us. Meanwhile, Crystal was just crying. I needed to do something, or else we would be dead bodies, right next to the one that's already on the floor. I saw that Crystal was right beside the switch to the lights. I looked at her and signaled my eyes to the switches to turn them off. The moment Crystal turned off the lights, I ran towards one of the masked men. Gunshots fired as the men were yelling to turn on the lights. I grabbed the power drill that was on the floor and drilled it right into the man's chest. I stuck the drill all the way in and didn't stop till I heard the man choking from his own blood. As soon as I got off him and heard Crystal breathing hard and yelling, I turned on the lights and witnessed Crystal stabbing the other man with a scalpel in the face. Half of his mask was gone from the punctures. I got Crystal and told her to stop. She was scared, terrified. She then hugged me and began to cry. Both of us were alive. We walked over to my vehicle and took off, both of us covered in blood. The sun was coming out as it was already 6:30 in the morning. Now, both of us knew we had to change our identities, and I knew a guy who could do it. I met him in jail, and we drove over to his place right away. Sometimes, I do think that maybe it would have been better off if both of us were dead, since we would now have to live in fear for the rest of our life. Lucky for us, I haven't heard or seen of anything, but you never know. These people always manage to find you. Let's hope they don't catch me now, or for the rest of my life.